Okay, well, this is about the halfway point in the 1968 California, 1968 Shelby GT 500 KR car. It's been over 2 years since I started this project. Through the pandemic, and my goal on this car, I've built quite a few other cars, as you may know, and my goal on this one was not to rush through it. I mean, the 1968 Shelby that I did, the GT 350, and the 1970 Shelby GT 350 I did. I didn't even have a MIG welder. I did it with an oxyacetylene torch, and I had, I cut the panels out with the torch. I didn't even use a die grinder. I used a die grinder to grind off the spot welds that I put in it, but those other cars, I mean, they had a lot of heat in them when I welded them, compared to this car, where I actually bought it's a Lincoln 100 welder, MIG welder. I bought it on Craigslist. Paid $75, $175, something like that for it, working, and it used the coated wire, and so I started with that, and within the first 2-3 welds, I decided I can't do this. The coating is just a contaminant. You can't really weld over it unless you clean the weld out. So I went on eBay, and that welder actually can be configured to do gas, even though it's the cheapest one they got. And so I went on eBay. I bought a nitrogen bottle, and I bought a regulator, the control valve. And it was like, the bottle was like $80, and the regulator was like, $20, for another $125, I made a true gas MIG welder, so I could weld with having clean welds and not deal with all the slag from the coating on there. What a world of difference it makes to use a MIG welder compared to an acetylene torch to weld in floor pans, or we'll buy sheet metal parts, to spot weld the sheet metal parts. But I did it with with the acetylene torch. I did 2 cars that way. Actually, I did a Ranchero, a 72 Ranchero. I put body panels on it, and I did it with an acetylene torch. And at night you could see it. When you look down, you could see the severe wave in the body panels. It was awful. So we're at the halfway point on this car. I've gone through 3 bottles of gas. One was accidentally released because I forgot to turn it off after months of not having it on. And I've gone through 3 or 4 packs of die grinders. So I've done a lot of things to this car that I never did on other cars that I've done. Um, this car is at the state now where it's essentially just fitting the body panels on them right, and working with the fiberglass. There's been a lot of problems with the fiberglass. I had on the back side here, the fiberglass is only like 1/16 of an inch to maybe 3/32 of an inch thick. So if you try to sand this off, you'll just sand right through it, the clear coat, and you'll be into it, and you could actually go right through it. So I actually had to build up a perimeter of fiberglass behind the panel for about 1/4 of an inch, something like that. So you have some good backup panel to work with, and then you had to reapply gel coat on it to get the surface back to where you want it. So I've been doing that. I'm at a quandary about the paint. Do I paint the car, or do I I'll have to paint certain parts of the car. Like I'll have to take these pieces off and paint the front of it, maybe inside the fenders, all the back sides of these parts, so that when I do a final fit up, I can take it somewhere and they can just paint the car as a regular, like a Mako or somebody can paint the car without taking it all apart. Because the right way to do this would be to take all these parts and put them together and paint them as one. I got somebody scratching at the door. Hang on a minute. Coming in? Come on. I'll leave it open. Anyway, that's Yeti. He wanted to come in, so anyway, that's my dilemma. I have painted other cars. I tried to paint the '68 Shelby. I did paint that car base clear, and it was a disaster. So I did hire somebody to paint the car. It was a small little place in Culpeper where I used to live, and they painted the car for me. The hood wasn't on it, the front valance wasn't on it, the nose caps weren't on it, the doors weren't on it, the back trunk lid wasn't on it. They painted that car base clear for $900 for me. I wish I had them today. I painted the '68 California Special, the pink car. I painted that with the acrylic enamel. That was, and I painted that in parts. I painted the fenders, I painted the hood, I painted the trunk lid, and then so that's probably what I'll do on this. I might even, whether I paint it with acrylic enamel or do I paint it, I'm not going to paint it base clear. I was thinking about using a single stage polyurethane to do it. So I'm really not sure how I'm going to go about doing that. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on it. I've seen a lot of failures on YouTube videos doing it, and I've seen a lot of great work on YouTube video. So that's not really sure where I'm going with it. Because of what I've done with this car, I'm hoping this car, I've tried very hard to make it as authentic as possible. I mean, I've bought obviously all the Shelby fiberglass for it. I definitely, it's easy to convert a regular Mustang into a deluxe Mustang. There's not a lot to it. I did buy a gauge cluster with the tack, with the right factory tack on it, and I sent it out and I had it rebuilt. I gave probably, I think it was like $275 for the gauge cluster, and it cost me over $1,000 to have it totally rebuilt. I went through TACman, and I had it totally rebuilt with refacing of the gauges. They put the new digital stuff in the tack, so it's a 3-wire tack now instead of just having a 2-wire, where if you put it to your distributor, if something happens to the tack, you lose your spark. And so that modification's been done, and put it on a new bezel, new wood grain bezel, and it came out awesome. And the TACman, he was an amazing guy. He knows his stuff, and he sent me pictures of the before and after. He sent me pictures of the values of showing the speedometer and the odometer, how they were functional. And he put 1 mile on just to prove that he did, it's got 1 mile on now, the odometer. Showed the readings of the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge. I had a clock put in it, so now I have a digital Mustang clock for it. So that was done. I had another guy build the vacuum booster for the power brake booster. So it's the original power brake booster in the car. Another great guy got it, notified me once he received it, said he's got it and everything, and gave me an estimated time to do it. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like $180 or something with shipping to get that brake booster done. I sent the carburetor away. I really wanted to keep the car engine as original, because the '68 T-Bird I used, the T-Bird was toast. The frame rails were gone. Every body panel had severe rust from sitting for so long. But it had the original Autolite 4300 carburetor on it that was in really good condition. So I sent away to this carburetor guy, and I paid like $300 or something to have this carburetor rebuilt. And it's I guess restored to concourse quality. I had taken it all apart, cleaned the parts off, and rebuilt it, but I didn't put the power valve in it. But I got it back from him after almost 8-9 months. I think he moved his shop. COVID, he had problems with COVID. He didn't do very well with the COVID. He was very sick, and but he finally did. After 8 months or something, I finally got the carburetor from him. And this conversion has not been the easiest thing. Putting in a 429 engine into a 68, 67, 68, even 65 or 67, 68, they fit at 428, where 65, 66, they weren't. 289 was the biggest engine you could put in them. But to put a 429 in it, this is the 385 series engine block, which is wider, and a lot of guys say you can't do it. Some say you can. Well, I've seen it done before. I remember a guy that back in the late 70s that I had known that he had done it, and it's a shoehorn for sure. And so I wanted to try it. It's a gamble. You know, it was a $1,500 gamble to me buying that car. Um, but the thing about it is, on that car, I sold, you know, I paid $1,500 for that car, and I'm still selling parts that I took off off the Thunderbird that to recoup my losses from just having the Thunderbird. Was the engine? I mean, the engine and the transmission. I took the pan off the transmission. The transmission was spotless inside. There was virtually no clutch film. You know, the pad, from the band film. There was virtually no band film in the bottom of the pan. It was immaculate inside. The 429 engine was extremely clean inside. The valve lifters didn't have any gunk. The valves didn't have any springs or anything. They didn't have any sludge or anything in the cylinder heads. The cylinder, the rocker covers were spotless. I mean, there was no. It looked like the oil splashed in it and cleaned it off, and that was it. So the oil, there was no oil buildup at all in the valley, in the valley area underneath the intake manifold. It was extremely clean. The car, I mean, the engine was really, 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 really clean. Now, I did put new freeze plugs in it, just as a precaution. I put the timing chain in it was a little loose, but it was, when I started it and checked it, the timing was fine on it. But I did put a new timing chain in it. The distributor was frozen. I couldn't turn the distributor. So after fighting heat and cooling it, trying to get it out, I couldn't get it out, so I had to bust it to get it out. It was really disappointing on that. But so it's got a new distributor in it, and it's a reman. It's not a new one of any kind. The water pump was bad. So I got another one, and it was the wrong core. And when I sent it away, when I sent the core, unfortunately, I wish I would never have done that, because the water pump was for a 390, not for a 429. So I lost the original core. And so when I bought another one that was correct, it's like basically buying it twice. So I learned my lesson on that. The engine pan, it was here again. It was really clean. There was no metal particles or anything in it. So I'm really pleased with the engine. I just saw no reason to tear it all the way down for what after all the investigation I did around it. I did buy a used 9-inch rear end that came out of a 1967 Mustang. It was a GT 350 car. It's got the bigger plug in it, 9-inch rear. The pumpkin, or the rear, the differential out of it, what do you want to call that? It was a 2.69 to 1 ratio. The pinion had been leaking, but I wanted a stronger gear in it, so I put a 300 in it. I wanted to be able, this is a cruising car for me. I'm not racing this car, and I'm not, I want it to be more of a cruiser, but I want it to be the strongest stuff you can get, because we just put a 429 against it. So I bought a Nigel rear end, which is that nickel iron casting, which is the best casting you can get. It's not a Ford part, it's a new one, and it's it's all new, and so that's what's in the rear now. It's a 28 spline car. I also bought 11-inch rear drum brakes, because I believe that's what were in the Shelby cars. They used the station wagon drum brakes out of large Ford station wagons, whether they're LTDs or whatever. So they had the larger 11-inch drum brakes. So I put 11-inch drum brakes in the back. The front brakes are actually the T-Bird disc brakes, which are single piston, but the pistons are huge in it. The pistons are like 2.5 inch diameter pistons in it. So they're really heavy duty pistons in it. The T-Bird also accepted 15-inch wheels. So that was bigger tires in the day, bigger wheels in the day. So it's got new or rebuilt T-Bird Thunderbird front disc brakes. All new. All the brake lines are stainless steel. They're all new. It's got a new master cylinder, and I talked to you about that. It's got a new brake booster in it. The radiator is a used radiator. It came out. I've got it on Craigslist for $60. It was a guy not too far from me who had it, and he was racing his car, and this one was overheating because he had a bunch of high performance parts on his engine, so he pulled this one out of it and put it in aluminum with a fan, electric fan on it. So I bought it for $60, and I had somebody actually not record, but actually just flush it out and go through it, test it, make sure. It cost me $70 to have it tested out to make sure it was a good, flush flow, good 3-core radiator. I was kind of hoping to stay with the Ford part. So I did that. The air conditioner pretty much is my big question at this point. I've gone through 2 air conditioner condensers because of hose problems. When I was trying to put the condenser in, it was fine, but when I hooked the hose up to it, the hose had a deflection on it, and around the neck of the condenser, it cracked on 2 of them. $250 part. I did it twice. So I found a machine shop who could weld those up with aluminum. They were aluminum, and I found a guy that was capable of welding them up. So the air conditioner still hasn't been tried. It's got the original air compressor in it, and I'm thinking about maybe buying a new one of those, or rebuild, or a new one of those, just so I don't have to take it in and put it back out and lose the Freon. I'm going with R12. I bought R12 for it versus doing the conversion, and that might be something that I probably shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. It's got a new dryer in it. It's got a new valve, the high pressure valve in it. It's got the new valve for the heater cooler in it. All new lines. So, but I had to pull the heater box out again because I had a heater. I can't even think of the part. Anyway, the radiator for the heater core, whatever you call it. I had one that came with the car, and I actually tested it under pressure. I put 100 pounds of pressure on it and held that under pressure for probably, I don't know, 2-3 hours, and it showed no leaks. So I thought that was good, so I put it in the car. Well, when I've run this car now for, I don't know, it's been about 2, 3 months ago, 4 months ago when I ran the car, it started leaking. So now I got to pull the whole air conditioning heater box out to put a new heater core in it. And you know, the ironic part is that I was concerned about the engine having, in the water jackets, having a lot of rust. So I put this rust restorium stuff in there that was recommended, and I let it sit in the engine for probably, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks. I would come out and start it up start the engine up, let it run for 15 until it got up to temperature, then I'd turn it off. And I did that for probably 3 weeks, and then just let it sit in there before I finally took it out, hopefully to get all the rust out and through the water jackets around the heads, because that's really where I was concerned, if the heads had a lot of rust around the water jackets. So I did that, so I'm thinking that maybe, well, because I did that it attacked the brass on the heater core, and that's what took the heater core out. So I'm trying to justify why it did it instead of versus my test that, you know, I found no problem with it. So that's what I've still got to do with that. But the heater box has been totally rebuilt as well. I went through it, put all new seals in it. Everything's been rebuilt on that. The car had some, you know, when I got the car, it had on the inner rockers, convertible inner rockers are bigger because since you don't have a solid roof, the inner rockers are like bigger tubes. They're half diameter square tubes that go down the length of the outer rocker to give you structural support. Well, when I got the car, it was all tarred up, and it had aluminum sheet metal just riveted to the tar, and it was tar on the inside of it and tar on the outside of it, on the driver's side and passenger side. But once you got into past the lower support, under the floor support, the flooring was fine. Around the speedometer, or around the throttle, this gas pedal, the back pans were fine. Half of it was fine. It was just like half of the pan was bad on each side. So the tunnel was good. The back floors had slight little rust areas in the back of the pans, and so I just patched those, and I only put like half panels in the front underneath the toe kicks on both sides. I replaced those. I also had to replace the outer side in the fender apron of the firewall on both sides. I did that. The inside was fine, so I put those outside pieces in. Both cowl panels were bad, and here's another mistake I did. Unfortunately, I bought the 65, 66. I mean, Virginia Mustang is where I buy most of my Mustang parts. They offered a part 65, they say 65